What's the matter with Batman? There must be something wrong with him, right? After all, he does things most of us wouldn't do in a million years. He dresses up in a bat costume and puts his life on the line night after night without any official status. He's a billionaire, yet he dedicates a significant portion of his personal wealth to fund his hobby of being a crime fighter. He has no real personal life to speak of, at least not one that isn't directly connected to his work as Batman. Note though that the same can be said for many of us. He broods, he can be obsessive in his preparations to tangle with criminals, and the fact that he witnessed the murder of his parents must have left a scar. These facets of his life are certainly unusual, but the question I investigate in this video is whether these issues, along with various problems and symptoms, place Batman in the abnormal range from a mental health perspective. If so, just how bad is his problem? In fact, a fair number of people in our world and in Batman's world have wondered whether something is wrong with them. People are fascinated by the question of whether there is something clinically wrong with Batman. Batman is different from other people in the world he inhabits, and people wonder about where the line is that separates different normal from different abnormal. Although people in our world may not be different in the ways that Batman is, his stories can lead us to think about what it takes to be considered abnormal, whether he is more than simply different but rather has a mental illness. After all, at first glance, dressing up like a bat in public or even in private would seem to suggest a significant problem. Chase Meridian, the psychologist in the film Batman Forever, is one such person. She remarks, "Well, let's just say that I could write a hell of a paper on a grown man who dresses like a flying rodent." The book What's the Matter with Batman, in a way, is the fulfillment of Meridian's aspiration. It is intended to explore Batman's issues from a psychological perspective, to determine whether his actions, thoughts, and feelings indicate a mental illness. Let me state clearly at the outset that I'm going to talk about Batman as if he were a real person. You and I both know that he's a fictitious character, but part of what makes him such a compelling character is thinking about what it would be like if he did exist, if he were real. So in my discussions about him, I'm not generally going to talk about why writers might have written particular stories, added specific characters, or how the Comics Code Authority guidelines might have affected his character or other characters or the stories. I'm going to take him as he is and try to understand him, contradictions and all. Part of my goal is to determine whether Batman's actions and problems reach the level necessary to be diagnosed with any of the disorders in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual 4th edition text revision. The specific disorders that seem to be the most likely candidates include dissociative identity disorder, depression, obsessive-compulsive disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, antisocial personality disorder. People familiar with Batman stories may find my views on the Cape Crusader's mental state interesting and illuminating. My hope is that you will also learn something about psychology in the process, something that can be of use to you as you think about yourself or other people. When mental health clinicians are asked to make a clinical evaluation of someone, they do so by talking to the person being evaluated, observing that person, and in some cases, obtaining information from others, family members, referring doctors, the court, or law enforcement agencies if they are involved. In some cases, psychological or medical testing is done to help clarify a question about the person's functioning, such as whether he or she has delusions, entrenched beliefs that are not based on reality, or whether the person's cognitive functioning is impaired in some way. My impressions and assessment of Batman are based on the stories that I've read or seen. Making my task even more challenging is the sheer number of stories about him. In his many decades of existence, Batman has been featured in almost countless number of stories in comic books, films, television shows, including cartoon shows, novels, and graphic novels. He's been featured working solo with various members of his Bat family and in team-ups with other superheroes such as Superman. I have not read or seen every story that features Batman, not even close. If you disagree with my conclusions because you know of specific stories that support different conclusions than the ones I reach, please let me know. There are a few aspects of Batman's life that I'd like to address right off the bat, no pun intended. That he dresses up like a bat, that he takes teenage boys as his wards and sidekicks, whether he has a substance abuse problem, that he devotes so much money to his life as Batman, and that he has no real personal life. Let's see whether any of these things indicate that something is really wrong with Batman. But the issue at hand is whether it's more than that, whether it's a sign of mental illness. My answer is that in Batman's case, it is not, for several reasons. First, Bruce Wayne didn't decide to walk or swoop around the streets of Gotham in a bat costume because he actually thought he was a bat. Wayne started dressing as Batman because he had a specific purpose in mind: to disguise his identity when he fought criminals. Sounds like a good idea to me, and one that is used by military personnel when necessary. Wayne also wanted his disguise to serve another function: to evoke fear in criminals. As Wayne noted to himself in Batman's origin story in 1939, criminals are a superstitious, cowardly lot, so my disguise might be able to strike terror in their hearts. I must be a creature of the night, black, terrible. Thus, Wayne intentionally set out to wear a disguise that did more than hide his identity. In this sense, his choice of disguise of costume was effective because it met his objectives. Yes, we can argue whether a snake costume would have been more effective, but that would have been harder to squeeze into. Get it? Additionally, Batman's use of his attire is analogous to police officers wearing their uniform or butlers wearing their uniform when on duty. Uniforms, of which his costume is one, signal what the wearer's role is. If you see someone in a police uniform, you expect certain kinds of behavior. If the officer pulls a gun and points it at someone running, it will likely mean something different to you than if the gun holder wasn't wearing that uniform. The uniform immediately conveys context to understand the wearer's behavior. In a sense, dressing as a bat is akin to dressing as a ninja or a Navy SEAL. The color black enables him to hide in the shadows until he wants to emerge. The bat's wings enable him to glide short distances, and the overall appearance achieves its ends. It is scary. His willingness to wear this unusual costume speaks to his dedication to his mission and how important he thinks the costume is. And as we see, it is. In what cases might Wayne's costume be considered a possible indication of mental illness? If Wayne actually believed that he was a bat, that is, if he had delusions, it would certainly suggest a mental illness such as schizophrenia or delusional disorder. If Wayne wore his batsuits for sexual excitement, it might indicate a sexual fetish. Another red flag would arise if Wayne thought he was a different person, a different identity when he dressed as Batman. If he did, he might be suffering from dissociative identity disorder. Batman has taken 5 youngsters under his wing to become Robin: Dick Grayson, the original Robin, who went on to become Nightwing; Jason Todd, who later became Red Hood; Tim Drake, who went on to become Red Robin; Stephanie Brown, who later became the 5th Batgirl; and Damian Wayne, Bruce's unknown son, whose mother is Talia al Ghul, the daughter of Ra's al Ghul. It is a curious thing for a romantically unattached man with a dangerous lifestyle to assume legal responsibility for a young teen, as he did with Dick Grayson. Also curious is why he trains and accepts minors as sidekicks in a dangerous profession. Might this be an indication of mental illness? To answer that question, we need to understand his motives. I think his motives were generative. In this context, the term generative comes from Erik Erikson's term generativity, which refers to a desire to guide and nurture the next generation. People can be generative in a variety of ways, through formal or informal mentoring at work, creating objects for others to use, or helping to rear children. When he first took in Dick Grayson, I believe he was acting on generative impulses. Grayson's family was part of his circus act, and Dick had witnessed his parents' murders, mirroring Bruce Wayne's witnessing his own parents' murders. Wayne took in Grayson to help someone in pain from growing up alone and isolated. He gave Grayson the gift of a mentor that he himself did not have. But why put a child in danger by taking him into skirmishes with criminals? That's a harder question to answer. Nonetheless, exposing Dick to danger was a clear lapse on judgment on Wayne's part. A very clear lapse. Wayne might have wanted to help buffer Grayson's loss, but there were many ways he could have done that without putting the youngster directly in harm's way. For instance, he could have used Grayson as an assistant who stayed in the Batcave, much as Alfred does, and as does the character Oracle, who helps Batman through her work at her command center. Further lapses in judgment came with his taking on each subsequent Robin. In Jason Todd's case, Wayne struggled against the lesser of two evils. He felt that if Todd weren't taken in hand and shaped to use his talents for good, then Todd would end up on the wrong side of the law. Other Robins, Tim Drake and Stephanie Brown, have had that role because they asked Batman to allow them to be Robin. They were young and the idea of being Robin is exciting and cool, as well as providing a great purpose to their lives. It is up to the adult, to Batman, to exercise good judgment, which he didn't. It may have been bad judgment for him to accede to their wish and continue to allow them to be in the role, but that doesn't mean Batman has a mental disorder. Bad judgment does not necessarily indicate a psychiatric disorder. Batman didn't have anything to do with the most recent Robin, Damian Wayne, assuming that role. Damian's ascension to the role of Robin occurred during a period of Wayne's extended absence from Gotham City. When the adult Dick Grayson stepped into the role of Batman, it was Grayson who allowed Damian to become Robin. Once Bruce Wayne returned, however, he allowed his son to continue in that role, given that Damian Wayne had been trained at a young age to kill by the nefarious League of Assassins. It is somewhat understandable that Wayne would want to try to remold Damian to use his talents for good, just as Wayne attempted to do with Jason Todd. Batman's body suffers. Batman's crime-fighting activities can leave his body battered, bruised, or broken. Alfred not only acts as butler to Bruce Wayne and concierge to Batman, he also acts as doctor and nurse to the Caped Crusader, stitching wounds, setting broken bones, even performing some surgical procedures. Does Batman take pain medication to help him keep going? And if so, is he addicted? Does he have a substance abuse problem? It is not likely that he self-medicates. Most of the time he's had a significant injury, he seems to do what people with chronic pain have learned to do: accept the pain, compartmentalize it, and live life anyway. Wayne is an incredibly smart man who has found a way to make his money grow and then to divert money to fund his activities as Batman. I don't see anything about his spending habits that indicates signs of a mental illness. It would be a warning sign if we went on spending sprees and he often purchased unneeded items. This could probably indicate manic episodes of bipolar disorder. Or if Bruce spent large sums of money to protect himself against an unknown enemy that no one else had reason to believe posed a threat, this could indicate that Wayne might be suffering from paranoia. But that's not the case. The money he spends to support his activities as Batman is well spent to prepare him to fight Gotham City's criminals. Bruce Wayne doesn't have much of a personal life. When he's not busy as Batman, he's overseeing the Wayne Foundation or Wayne Enterprises. Moreover, he must devote some time to the parties of the rich and the famous, including his own, to keep up his billionaire playboy facade. He's juggling multiple full-time jobs. Yes, he tends not to have relationships with people outside of his work life, but the same can be said for many of us, particularly if we spend many hours at work side by side with our colleagues. Plus, given the secret of the Batman part of his life, it's hard to let other people in. If and when he does tell a woman he's romantically involved with about his secret life, she is likely to get twisted up when he goes to work each night. This is what happened with Silver Saint Cloud. She is a wealthy and sharp woman in Bruce's circle who deduced that Bruce Wayne is also Batman. Although they love each other, after she witnessed the Caped Crusader fight the Joker, she realized that she couldn't be in a romantic relationship because of the stress of worrying whether he'll come home each night. One appeal of Catwoman as a romantic partner is that there's less that Wayne has to keep from her, and she truly understands who he is as Batman. He is fully known. Alfred and each Robin know about Bruce's dual identities, about his history and vulnerabilities. Wayne is thus truly and fully known and accepted by more people than most of us can claim. If you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you will enjoy my other video essays. Thank you for watching. Like this video if you liked it. My name is Sai, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!